Hare Krishna, everyone. This is Asraya Madhav Das, and tomorrow we are going to speak on the 8th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, attaining the Supreme. But before that, let's do the Mangalacharan prayers to invoke the auspiciousness from our previous acharyas for successful delivery of the session. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vande Aham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Shahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Shute Devi Pranamami Haripriye. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Nitai namene che namirhate Shraddha mule nam dite che re. Nitai namene che namirhate Shraddha mule nam dite che re. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare Hare. Now we'll discuss. Put this title bar somewhere else. So now we'll discuss today's chapter 8, attaining the Supreme, as I was telling. Before we go there, we'll like to discuss the background of some of the questions which Arjun asks in the beginning of this chapter. And I think there is another sound coming, so I will just go ahead, and maybe it is one of the YouTube or something. So let me just go ahead and Facebook I have muted. Yeah. Okay, so why Arjun asks all these questions, and we'll go to those questions. We'll start chapter 8. So let's look at the background. I will try to quickly breeze through the first 7 chapters, what happened. So in the first chapter, of course, Arjuna did not want to fight because of various reasons, which are based on Shastras, that there will be socio-economic upheaval because so many Kshatriya kings will be killed. The families will be uprooted, the dharma will be destroyed, and there will be chaos in the society. In the beginning of second chapter, Krishna says that is what you are relinquishing, your duty to fight, that is anarya. Okay? Now then Arjuna gives the counter reasoning that I cannot fight with my guru, who are my guru who taught me these arts, my pitama, who is my worship of worthy of my worship. So that is also against Aryan civilization. So he sort of gives some reasoning, like, sometimes when we don't understand the real purpose behind why something is written in the scripture, we pick reasoning so just to justify our action. So Arjuna was trying to do that, but he realized that he got confused, because he knew that he was Kshatriya and he's supposed to fight to protect the religious principles. So he submits to Lord Krishna. He accepts Lord Krishna as spiritual master. And that is when the rest of the second chapter goes on. And Krishna first takes him to the highest level, which is the Sankhya, which says that there is soul, which is permanent, and there is everything else, the body and other elements made up of the body, they're all temporary. Right? So, and then he goes to the Buddhi Yoga, which says, he says, Vyavasayatmaka Buddhi, which means you should engage in the business of that which is permanent, the soul. Right? And then he starts describing that, but somewhere there he talks about meditation, focusing on Lord Krishna, to control your senses. And towards the end, he does discuss that, if someone remains in that state, then he definitely, goes to that state, which is to the kingdom of God. Now, Arjuna, again, in third chapter, he asks that why, if focusing on you, focusing on the supreme is the ultimate goal, and that's the intelligence, then why you're asking me to fight? And then Lord Krishna talks. He says, he clarifies further. He discussed about two things, Sankhya and Yoga. Yoga means he's talking about here Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, right? And he delineates and says that the Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, they both give the same results, but Karma Yoga, Buddhi Yoga is much more practical. It is about practicing what you learn through Sankhya Yoga. Okay? And he goes on saying that, and at some point he does describe that one should not deviate from his prescribed duty, the duty which is given based on the guna and karma. If a soul should not deviate from the prescribed duty assigned to the body in which the soul is. Okay. So we should stick to that. And then Arjuna asks, then why then people deviate sometimes helplessly, away from that path? And Lord Krishna says it is because of lust. That's the end of the third chapter. And then he goes on elaborating. He says that how to overcome that lust? Through spiritual knowledge, through transcendental knowledge. And what is that knowledge? He describes that in the fourth chapter. He elaborates it. Throughout the fourth chapter, he does describe about various sacrifices whose ultimate purpose is gaining the knowledge, right? And then towards the end, he does describe about, he does describe about devotional service, but he also says, okay, Arjuna, you must now fight. Okay. So Arjuna says that, you talk about renouncing, but then you're talking about engaging in activity. Which is it? So that's the beginning of question of the fifth chapter. Action in Krishna consciousness. And then Lord Krishna then describes that if you act in Krishna consciousness, then you are actually, because when you act in Krishna consciousness, you are offering the results of that to Krishna. So you are actually renouncing. True renunciation is that. And that's what he keeps on, goes through in the fifth chapter. And then in the sixth chapter, he says, what is that knowledge? What is the path through which that ultimate knowledge is gained? So he then describes the whole yoga process. How in the beginning of that yoga process, you're supposed to engage in your activity, but towards the end, you have to cease your activities and you have to completely control your mind. And he was sort of giving hint also to Arjuna, that Arjuna, what you're trying to do by relinquishing your prescribed duty and going to forest, this is what you are supposed to do. You are not. It's not that what you see externally, what the sannyasis do, which is like go door to door and beg. You must be assuming that is what is sannyasi is, but that's the easier part of being sannyasi. The harder part is controlling his mind, right? And Arjuna says, "Oh no, that's very difficult. I can't do that because the mind is more difficult than controlling the wind." So then, but Krishna says through practice, yes, you can do that. But towards the end, he does say that the main goal is, of course, not to go through all this strenuous process, but somehow or other remember Lord Krishna. Okay. Then in the beginning of 7th chapter, Lord Krishna starts describing that yogi, not the yogi who is after mystic power. There are yogis who are after mystic power, but there are yogis who wants to follow the path of yoga to realize themselves, realize, what is the truth, what is the reality. And he talks about those yogis, what is the knowledge they get, which is the, knowledge of the absolute, which is the title of the 7th chapter. He goes on describing, okay, and we will read the last 2 verses of that 7th chapter, and that will give us a background of why these questions Arjuna is asking. So let's just go to those 2 verses of the 7th chapter. So we'll read 7.29. Okay. Jara marana mokshaya mama sritya yatanti ye te brahma tad vidhu krishnam adhyatmam karma chakhilam. Okay. And then he asks, what is he asking? What is Krishna saying? Krishna is saying intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death, Jara Marana, take refuge in me in devotional service. Refuge, Asritya. Okay. They are actually Brahman, they Brahma, because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities. Okay. They entirely, Krishna, transcendental, adhyatmam karma, okay, chakhilam. They know about that. So that's the 7.29. Go to 7.30. Sadhi bhutadi daivam mam sadhi yagyam cha ye vidu prayana kale apicha mam te vidur yukta chetasha. So saying those in full consciousness of me, okay, the Supreme Lord, with the governing principle of the material manifestation, Sa Adibhuta, right, of the demigods, Adi Daivam, and of all methods of sacrifice, Adi Yagyam. Okay. And then he says, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death, Prayana Kale. Supreme Personality of Godhead is saying himself, Mam, okay, me. So if you look at Bhagavad Gita, many places, Lord Krishna is saying the ultimate goal of anything we do in this life, okay, we earn $1 billion, we become multiple exits, or we are the poorest of poor, it does not matter. Okay. What matters is that final exam. You may give many exams in this life. What matters is that final exam. The final exam is, what do you remember? What is your consciousness when you are leaving the body? And that is what actually drove the questions, this seriousness of this last phrase of this sloka, which Lord Krishna repeats many times in the previous chapters. Like I told you at the end of 2nd chapter and many other places, drove Arjuna to ask the questions in the 8th chapter. And I will take word by word and compare with this thing that, he actually is asking word by word, the same exact things what Lord Krishna has explained in these 2 verses. Arjuna Uvacha. So now I'm in the beginning of 8th chapter, 1st verse. Kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam kim karma purushottama adhibhutam cha kim proktam adidaivam kim uchyate. So I will now compare here the previous verse. Right. Kim tad Brahma, te Brahma. So he's asking, what is Krishna is saying that is Brahman, and he's asking, who is Brahman or what is Brahman? Right. Kim Adhyatmam. He's saying Adhyatmam, that is what he's asking Arjuna. Okay. Who is that self? Kim Karma. Asking karma. Krishna is saying karma. So Arjuna is asking, what is karma. Then if you go to the next verse, Lord Krishna is saying, Sa Adi Bhutadi Daivam. So he's saying two things here, Adi Bhuta, Adi Daivam. So here, Arjuna is saying, Adi Bhutam, right? Kim Proktam, Adi Daivam, Kim Uchyate. Right? So what is that Arjuna is asking? Oh my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? So in the translation, they are calling transcendental. Transcendental, self, they're kind of same thing, okay, because self is transcendental. Okay? So in the previous chapter, in place of self, the translation is transcendental there. So that's what I'm saying. What are fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me. Okay. Then in the next verse, Arjuna is asking, Adi yagya katham kotra deheshmin madhusudana prayana kale cha katham gyeosi niyatatmabhi. So he's asking, who is the Lord of sacrifice and how does he live in the body? Sacrifice, Adi yagya. Okay. Katham, how does he live in the body? O Madhusudan. And Prayana Kalecha Katham, how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? Okay, Prayana Kale. And this translates to the here in the previous Prayana Kale Chikipma Te Vidu Yukta Chetasa. And Sa Adi Yagyam is what you see here, Lord of sacrifice. And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? So what Lord Krishna is saying that in the previous, what he explained there was that is all devotional service. You have to do devotional service. We do bhoga, we do archana, but we have to keep in mind those aspects of the Lord when we do that archana, that he is that governing principle. Okay. And what is that? So to know these things in more detail, Arjuna is asking this, so he is able to relate what is going on in the material world to bring him to that consciousness that Lord is present everywhere. Lord is governing everything. Only when we do that, then day in and day out, minute in and minute out, everything we do, we then have that consciousness that Lord is actually the governing principle is the Lord Krishna. Okay. Then we are in that consciousness of the Lord. That is why Arjuna is asking, please explain me all these things in a little bit more detail, because it's important. Only when you are in that consciousness, in the previous chapter, Lord Krishna is saying, that is when you will remember me at the time of death. Okay. So given that background, I will continue with the other verses. Okay. Now Lord Krishna starts explaining. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavo Adhyatma Muchyate Bhuta Bhavo Bhava Karo Visharga Karma Shamgita. Okay. Lord Krishna is saying the indestructible transcendental living entity is called Brahman. So Brahman is Aksharam, Paramam. Okay. Paramam means transcendental or absolute. Okay. Aksharam means Shara means destructible. Akshara means indestructible. So it never gets destroyed. That is Brahman. Okay. And his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Swabhavo Adhyatma Muchyate. And what is the nature of that Brahman? It is Adhyatmam, Adi Atmam. Means this is the first Atma. Okay. So you can see the link between Brahman and Paramatma here. Okay. So there is a little bit of link here, that Adi Atma, okay, the self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of living entities is called karma or fruitive activities. So while first he's explaining what is not changing, then he explains what causes the change in living entities, which is karma. So he's sort of, putting side by side both that does not change as well as that changes. Okay. So the karma changes, Brahman does not change. Okay. So he sort of puts that side by side. Adibhutam Sharo Bhava Purushashchadi Daivatam Adi Yagyo Aham Evatra Dehe Deha Bhritambara. He's saying Adi Bhutam, the physical manifestation, right? Okay, we'll go to the translation. Or best of the embodied beings, the physical nature which is constantly changing is called Adi Bhuta, the material manifestation. Okay, it is constantly changing. Not only karma, it changes, even the physical nature also constantly changes. Purushascha Adi Daivatam, the universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods, like those of the sun and moon, is called Adi Deva, or the first Deva, which is the source of all the other Devas. Okay, that is the universal form of the Lord. And I, the Supreme Lord, represented as the super soul in the heart of every embodied being, am called Adi Yakya. Right? So everything that we do at the end of the day, that is why, we need to offer it. When we offer it, we say we offer it to the Lord, we're actually offering it to that which is in our heart. Okay, that aspect of the Lord, the Adi Yagya, the Lord of we, that Paramatma is also, exist in this aspect in our heart. Adi Yagya is accepting our sacrifice. Okay. And then he says the most important thing. Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram ya prayati samadbhavam yati nasti yatra samsaya. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this, there is no doubt. Okay. So he now answers basically, okay, that whoever remembers Lord Krishna at the end, so he's sort of repeating, what he has told before, but he will now, in the subsequent verses, he will elaborate further, how the previously the saints and all, how they remember Krishna. What is that process, okay, to remember him. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajati ante kalevaram tam tam evaiti kaunteya shada tad bhava bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. Here, Lord Krishna is talking about a general principle. Okay. He is actually saying the previous verse, what he said, remembering him, he said that aspect is actually derived from this general principle. He's sort of, if you read Bhagavad Gita, you will often find it's almost like, a scientific discourse. It is not just telling the effects, but it is also talking about the causes. Okay, the basic principle. It also is talking about the basic principle. So this is the basic spiritual principle. Okay, that whatever state you will remember, okay, at the time of quitting the body, that is the state you will attain. Right? And in Srimad Bhagavatam, we have seen, at least I can remember two. Okay, one is Bharat Muni, right? Bharat Maharaj. He went to forest. He left everything. He went to forest to focus exclusively on the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the process of meditation. But because he got attached to a deer, he kind of forgot the process. Okay, he was probably doing it, but he was not. His life and soul became that deer, protecting that deer. Because it is said that he was at the bhava stage. In bhava stage, devotees become very compassionate. So it is extremely important if a devotee is in that stage of bhava stage, It is extremely important that the devotee, actually through the Bharat Maharaj, we can get an example. It is extremely important that the devotee is in association of other devotees. It is definitely very important when a devotee is in the, the anartha nivritti, in the beginning stage, when he is going going through the purification process. It is even more important to the Bharat Maharaj's example that even during the bhava stage, it is important for the devotee to have association, because when you have association, good devotees, true devotees don't really, say, I pat your back and you pat my back. No, they don't do that. Okay. Good devotees are those devotees who will caution you. If you're doing something wrong, they will caution you. Okay. That actually is not just a good devotee, is actually a real good friend. A friend who is not cautioning you, is telling, oh, you are great, you are good, is probably not a very good friend. Okay. Because that is what we need friends for. Friends indeed is the, friend in need is the friend indeed. And in this material world, we are always in need of right guidance. Right? So, so that's what happened to Bharat Maharaj. There was no one probably to, caution him. And it's probably, Lord's Leela, sometimes Lord uses the devotees to, show example to the whole world. And he took birth in next life as a deer, right? The another one was actually not really a story, but it was an allegory. And in that, Narad Muni, telling an allegory to Prachinbari about the king. I'm forgetting the name of the king there, who got attracted to a woman, and he started a family. And then at the end of the family life, because he was so attached to his woman, that at the end of the life, he got the body of a woman, basically, right? So that is that basic principle. Okay, so here Lord Krishna is saying that basic principle, and the previous verse, he actually says that if you remember him, then you will go to him. So this is a basic principle. Okay, now let's go to the next verse. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anushmara yudhya cha mai arpita mano buddhir mam evasyashi asamshaya. Okay, so here Lord Krishna now starts giving details of specific to Arjuna's situation, how he should do it. Okay, so that he can remember Krishna always. Because remembering Krishna at the end of life is not a trick. Okay, it's not a tip. There is no tip to do that. You have to remain conscious throughout your life about Krishna. Then only Krishna will be merciful to you and help you remember him at the time of death. Okay. And so he's saying to Arjuna, therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna. Okay. And at the same time, carry it to your prescribed duty of fighting. Two things, very important. Not that you will remember Krishna and you will do all nonsense. No, you have to do your prescribed duty, because when you don't do your prescribed duty, so remember that, I think Lord Krishna already said before in one of the verses, in one of the chapters, that this whole varnashram system, the four varnas, the Brahmana, Kshatriya, the Brahmanas who are supposed to guide the society towards self-realization, then Kshatriyas who are supposed to protect the citizens so that they can do devotional service to the god. The Vaishya is supposed to make sure we have all the needs. Okay, so they produce the agriculture and the other goods, and then Shudra they serve. This is the varna, and then the asrama system, right? The whole brahmacharya, when you're supposed to get education, remain celibate, then you do grihastha, you take shelter of griha, a home, a wife, children, or husband, and then vanaprastha, you then say, okay, I'm done now. I need to understand that ultimate reality. So you start going to pilgrimage places, right? Pilgrims, and talk to sadhus and then you take sannyas, right? This whole varnashram system was actually created by Krishna. It says that Chaturvarnyamam Krishna, right? So when we don't do that prescribed duty, we are sort of disobeying Krishna. we are creating our own duties, we are disobeying Krishna. Now in Kali Yuga, of course, the prescribed duty is very hard to follow. So therefore, Lord Krishna has made it very simple for us, do whatever you are doing, but don't be under that impression whatever you are doing is prescribed duty. Okay, that's hodgepodge. Okay, so you do one duty good. Okay, that is the duty of this yoga, which is Sankirtana Yajna. Okay, glorify me and distribute that glorification to others. So, but he was talking to Arjuna that your prescribed duty of fighting that you have to do, but you have to also at that same time remember me. Okay, with your activities dedicated to me. So this is the key phrase. So now he is linking. What is that link between remembering Krishna and that prescribed duty of fighting? The result of that fighting must go to him. That is the relation between the prescribed duty of fighting and thinking of Krishna. You should know that you are doing this fighting for me, dedicated to me, and your mind and intelligence fixed on me. That means when you are doing your activity, don't be under that impression it's all going to be, cakewalk. There will be challenges in life. Okay, and don't hesitate. Okay, just like a little child doesn't hesitate to again and again come to father to get guidance, not for stuff, but to get guidance, to get intelligence. So fix your intelligence on me, and you will attain me without that, and I will, guide you, and you will then attain me without doubt. So that is what Lord Krishna is saying here. So he is giving some details here, and Lord Krishna is saying to Arjuna. Arjuna is an administrator class, right? The Kshatriya class. What is the instructions for other class, right? What are the prescribed duties? There are some details Lord Krishna is giving towards the end of Bhagavad Gita in 18th chapter. What are the other varnas are supposed to do? But again, those are not really applicable in today's life. So what to do? We cannot just do Sankirtana Yajna. We have to feed our stomach. So we have to engage in something, activity. And that is why, to give that for the time, place, and circumstance, a realized soul who knows the scriptures in essence and can tell us what we are supposed to do, we need to therefore take guidance from those self-realized souls. We need to have then a guru. Accepting a guru is just telling that person, that self-realized soul, that whatever you are telling me, I will accept. Okay. You can always tell your situation, and then guru may accept that situation and give you, some guidance which works for your situation, but you need a pratyaksha guru. Okay? Because when you are depending on Krishna, whether it is Krishna telling you, or is it your lust telling you, or is it your illusion telling you, you won't be able to distinguish. Okay, so you need to validate that, you whatever you are thinking in terms of your prescribed duty, you need to validate that with the self-realized soul. Okay? That is critical. So I sort of, made this verse relevant to, in our context. Abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasa nanya paramam purusham divyam yati parthanu chintayan. He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. Okay, a very stringent criteria. Always remembers, and he is never deviated from the path. Which path? Which he described in the previous verse. You have to keep doing your duty and at the same time remember him. How? By dedicating your activities, the result of your activities to him. And therefore he mentions not any duty, not any concocted duty, prescribed duty. Okay. So stealing, robbing, and cheating, fraud is not part of the prescribed duty. Many times Srila Prabhupada, in many of his conversation and the morning walks, he said very clearly that devotees are supposed to lead a straightforward life. Okay, so that's what he meant. Okay, whatever you are doing, be straightforward. Don't let the illusions of this world force you to do wrong things. Don't be under that impression that Krishna will save you then. Okay. Kavim Puranam Anushashitaram Anur Aniyamsham Anushmaredya Sarvasya Dhataram Achintarupam Aditya Varnam Tamashaparastat. So then he describes now, the first he described in terms of, the mundane world, right? How you are supposed to engage in activity and remember Krishna. Now he's describing that supreme person, that is himself. In a third person, he's describing how one should remember him. Okay. One should meditate upon the supreme person as the one who knows everything. Okay. So we should not think that he does not know about, large hadron collider in CERN. Okay. What is going on there? Because he is in every atom. He knows everything. Okay. He knows everything. Okay. But should we go to him for that knowledge? Okay. So that is the main thing. I mean, does it make sense basically? When you know everything in this world is temporary, does it make sense? As he who is the oldest, so he is not only present now in everything, he was present in everything from time immemorial. Who is the controller? He is not only present, but he is also controlling. Right? Who is smaller than the smallest, who is maintainer of everything. Right? He is smaller than the smallest, even smaller than the atom. Right? Who is maintainer of everything. Who is beyond all material conception. So that is another thing. A person who has all these qualities are very difficult for us to imagine. It is like, Srila Prabhupada used to give example of Dr. Frog. He is in his well, which is probably like 20 feet. I don't know exactly like how deep the wells are. And then he's discussed about Atlantic Ocean and he says, okay, so that is like 200 feet. You can't imagine that something could be, there could be a water body which is thousands of or 10,000s of, feet. You cannot imagine that. So that is why this is very important. Don't try to imagine these qualities. Don't try to measure them. Just accept that they are inconceivable. And on top of that, he is always a person. Okay. This is where, the reason why impersonalists, one of the reason, okay, why they think this is not a person, because they have never seen a person who has this quality. Okay. So that is why they say it has to be some kind of a force, some kind of a foundation, not really a person. Okay. But so Lord Krishna clarifies, no, whom you are meditating on is a person. Okay. And that is that supreme person. Through his inconceivable mystic opulence, he is doing all this, whatever has been described here. He is present everywhere. He is the oldest. He's controlling everything. He's smaller than the smallest, maintaining everything. Okay. He is doing it. He's a person, but he's doing all that. Okay. And he's doing that not himself. He's doing that through his various energies. Right. And he's luminous like the sun. And he's transcendental beyond this material nature. What does he mean? He's luminous like the sun. Just like sun, disinfects everything. The moment it comes, everything is visible. Okay, and the sun removes the darkness. Like that, the supreme person has that quality. Okay, when he manifests in our heart, I mean, he's always there, but when he manifests, okay, at that time he's luminous like the sun. He destroys our darkness. Okay? And he is transcendental beyond this material nature. This is also very important point Krishna is making about the Supreme Person. You have to understand that the reason why we cannot imagine that is because our imagination is constrained by our observations of this material world where we do not see such a person. And that is why, he says he's transcendental. You are not able to, you cannot, through your scientific endeavor, you can, measure this person because he is beyond material nature. He's transcendental. But so you have to accept the authority. Yeah. Prayana kale manasachalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva bhruvora madhye pranam aveshya shamyak shatam param purusham upaiti divyam. Now Lord Krishna is describing how, such people who is now in that conception. So if you remember the last verse of the previous chapter, he did say that, one who is in that conception that he's everything, is controlling everything, and he remembers him like that, and remembers him at the time, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, will remember him at the time of death. Now he's elaborating that last verse of the 7th chapter is elaborating based on the questions Arjuna asked. So he's now talking about, leaving the body. And he's actually talking about yogis. Okay. But don't be disheartened. Towards the end, he does talk about, the devotees who normally don't engage in this strenuous, you don't have to engage in this strenuous activities. Risky. It may happen, it may not happen. But this one is the specific type of yogis he's talking about, who are actually devotee yogis, okay, one who is not after mystic power, okay. One who at the time of death fixes his life hair between the eyebrows and by the strength of yoga with an undeviating mind, engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion, will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay. So, you have to fix your life here. Life here means your pran. Okay, there are a lot of airs moving in our body. Just like in Bhagavatam, it has been written that there is this our living soul, the living entity is in the region of heart, and it is floating in the cross currents of 5 types of airs which flows within our body. Okay, so it has been given in detail. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna there was a sense of urgency, so he did not go into the detail of all these things. Okay, but if you go to Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, and read, the discourse he is having with Uddhav, he has provided a lot more details, because there he was in a much more relaxed state. Okay, Lord was in a much more relaxed state. Anyway, so he's saying that life hair one has to fix between the eyebrows. Okay, and which is actually, if you go into the whole chakra philosophy, then that is where your Agya chakra is, the chakra which gives you foresight or vision, right? And into future and past. So that is where the life hair one is supposed to, fix. And then by the strength of yoga, with an undeviating mind, very important, undeviating mind, okay, engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion. So the words have been chosen very carefully. Full devotion, complete devotion. That means, no doubt, that Supreme Lord will help you. You need to have that complete faith in the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, this will not work. Okay, will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Of course, these yogis, actually, they practice sometimes, this type of yoga people used to practice in Satyug. So, so Lord is talking about that, but it's not that there's no one who is practicing that in Kali Yuga or in Dwapar Yuga. There are probably, but very few. So whenever we talk about Yuga Dharma, you should remember that is the predominant method. Okay, the predominant method in Satyuga was meditation. Okay, but that does not mean no one was doing Sankirtan. Okay, Narad Muni himself was doing Sankirtan, basically, right? Similarly, predominant method is in Treta Yuga is Yajna, but there were people doing deity worship. So although Lord is saying this, so what Lord is trying to say, the people even in Kali Yuga or in Dwapar Yuga doing this, the yogis want to realize him, okay, his Paramatma form, engage in this exercise, and then that's how they achieve the Supreme Lord in devotion. Okay. Yad aksharam veda vido vadanti vishanti yad yatato vitaraga yad icchanto brahmacharyam charanti tatte padam sangrahena pravakshe. Persons who are learned in the Vedas, who utter Omkar, okay, and who are great sages in the renounced order, enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy. I shall now briefly explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation. So here Lord Krishna is saying that he is talking of the people who may follow a different path but the same yoga process, okay, and they utter Omkar, okay, and so Omkar is actually in I think in probably 10th chapter where he's talking about, or in the I think in the 7th chapter only says he is actually the same Omkar, right? He's saying that Lord Krishna. So he so that is another path. It is actually the path normal of impersonalists, because they don't want to accept the form, so they accept Om as a sound vibration, okay, the primal sound vibration, the first sound vibration, and thus they enter into the Brahman, and they lead a very arduous life of celibacy, and there are many other strict guidelines they follow. So Lord Krishna is explaining that process also to Arjuna, okay, here. I will now stop here and I will quickly check if there are any comments or anything in the online or here in Zoom, anyone has any questions, and then we'll go to the rest of the verses. Okay, stop sharing. I will quickly check. Okay, looks like there are no questions here. There are no questions here. Okay, looks like there's only one Prabhu there, Mayank Prabhu. There is no one else in the Zoom. So I'm assuming, so Mayank Prabhu, do you have any questions, any comments, anything? If not, then I'll go back to the verses. Okay, so looks like there are no questions, there are no comments. So I will now go back to the verses. Bhagavad Gita. So what is the process they follow? Okay, what is the process they follow? Sarvadvarani samyamya mano hridi nirudhya cha mudni adhyatmana pranam asthito yoga dharanam. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagements, right? Detachment, pratyahar, right? That is what they're doing. Closing all the doors of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and life here at the top of the head, one establishes himself in yoga, right? So this is the process. So he did pratyahar. So this is the Ashtanga yoga, where there's yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, right? Pratyahar. And then after that, so this is 5. And then after that, dharana. Dharana means what is he's going to hold on to, that form. And then dhyana, focusing on that form, different aspects. And then finally, of course, samadhi. So here he's doing, this, and then closing all the doors of senses. This essentially is doing pratyahar. And then fixing the mind on the heart and life here of the top of the head is actually doing, dharana and dhyan. Okay. Lord Krishna will give probably a little bit more detail in the next verse. Okay. Om iti ekaksharam brahma vyaharam mam anushmaran yah prayati tyajandeham shayati paramam gatim. After being situated in this yoga practice, which we learned from the previous verse, and then they vibrate the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters. If one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. So here he is talking about the devotees, the devotee yogis, because they accept the form, the ultimate reality is a form, that ananda, that blissful form. So they focus on that. Although they don't deny the om aspect of that form, the sound vibration that is coming out from that form. So that is the wonderful thing about devotional service. The devotional service do not follow the other paths, but they do accept the essential aspects from those paths. Okay, so they don't disrespect the other paths. They think the other paths also came from that Supreme Personality of God. So they respect that. But they know the ultimate reality is a person, and that is where I need to focus. That is why these devotee yogis, they also vibrate level om, not just, just focusing on some form. And in Bhagavatam, in I think in third canto, where Kapil Dev, one of the incarnation of Krishna, is describing Devahuti, his mother, that whole process, how one is supposed to meditate on the different limbs of the, Krishna. And in many, many years, you need to dedicate on just the lotus feet, just to purify yourself. Then the different limbs, and finally the whole form. Okay. So there is this whole process, although Lord Krishna has sort of summarized everything here in brief. Okay. But when you do that, not just Om, if you do Om, then you just go to Brahma Jyoti. Okay, Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti, Sabhyate. But if you focus on its form, also along with Om, then you achieve both Brahman and Paramatma. Okay, and if you really do not the Paramatma form, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna or Narayan, okay, or Lord Ram, then you go to their respective spiritual planets. So this is another path. Okay. Ananya cheta satatam yo mam smarati nityasha tasyaham sulabha partha nityayuktasya yogina. For one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pritha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. Easy, sulabha. What is Lord Krishna is saying? Yes, there are those paths I described, but then know that one who remembers me without deviation, that he is easy to obtain. He understands, basically. Lord Krishna understands. He is looking only at your intention, your sincerity. That is what he is looking. He is not looking for some, extraordinary feats from you. He is not impressed because, all that anyone is doing in this world or any other world is either, because of, his direction and or his energies. So nothing can really impress him. But if you do that as an offering to him, okay, thinking that I will put effort to offer this beautiful thing to Lord Krishna, my dedication, my austerity, he accepts it, basically. Then he accepts it. If you say, I will show it to Krishna, then he say, okay, you show like that for a million years, he will just patiently wait. He does not like pride. Okay. So sincerity is very important, and that is what Lord Krishna is saying. If you remember him without deviation, you pretty much achieve the same thing which the devotee yogis get. Okay. Mamupetya punarjanma dukhalayam shashvatam napnuvanti mahatmana samsiddhim paramam gata. After attaining me, the great souls, so all those souls, the devotee yogis, and then the devotee themselves, who is always thinking about Krishna, okay, here he's saying who are yogis in devotion, but then it also includes those souls, okay, never return to this temporary world. They don't return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries. Because they have attained the highest perfection. Why they don't return? Because they have attained that highest. What is that perfection? That perfection is what is described in the 7th chapter, that Lord Krishna is everything. And you have to understand how you have to understand. You have to understand in a way which has been described in the end of the 7th chapter and in detail till now what we have read, that he is the governing principle of everything ordinary and everything extraordinary that we are observing and we are not able to observe, written in the scriptures. He is the governing principle of everything. That is the highest perfection. When you have that perfection, then you know everything is working perfectly, and therefore, even in this world, you don't see misery as misery at all. You know that whatever we are seeing, we are observing, we are getting is because of our own actions in the past. He is giving us misery, but that misery is, we asked for it, through our actions. So, in this world itself, he remains in that spiritual consciousness. And of course, here he is saying that they go to the spiritual world itself. They never come back. So even if the Lord sometimes, send those devotees to this world, we should never be under the impression that these devotees are suffering like us. No. They are not suffering because they are not able to achieve something material. They are suffering because when we see they are suffering in this world, the devotees suffering, they're suffering because they're not, because of the situation, they're not able to serve the Lord to their full satisfaction. That is the suffering they are going through. Okay. Brahma bhuvana loka punar avartino arjuna mamupetya tu kaunteya punar janma na vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. So now Lord Krishna is also now started explaining that what do you achieve by remembering Lord Krishna at the point of death, and then you go to one of his spiritual planets, right? Either the yogi who is living the body through this yogic process, uttering Omkar, remembering him, or the devotee who is always remembering him, through his activities by offering him that result. What do they really achieve? And not only that, they don't come back here. Okay. He's also saying that they never take birth again, like the material birth. They never take again. Even if they come to this world because Lord sent them, they don't. They're protected by Lord's shelter. Okay, the Daivim Prakitim never bothers them. Okay. Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Ahar Yad Brahmano Vidu Ratrim Yuga Sahasrantam Teho Ratra Vido Jana. Now Lord Krishna started explaining about this world. He is now started explaining that if we choose to do something else, right? Remember that basic principle he told, that whatever state we remember, that is the state we'll attain in the next life. So that is the basic principle. And then from there, we can derive, okay, we want to go to the abode of Lord Krishna, okay, or we want to become something else. So that we have to decide. Whatever consciousness we develop throughout the life, that is what we'll remember at the point of death, and that is where we will go. So now let us say we don't do that. Okay, we don't offer our results to Krishna, we don't engage in that remembrance of him. Then what happens? Okay, then Lord Krishna is saying the cycle, the painful cycle we have to go through, and he's explaining those two aspects here. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of his night. So 1,000 ages, and one so this is actually yuga cycle. Okay, it is not just 1,000 ages, but 1,000 yuga cycle. So one yuga cycle is 4.3 million years. We are now in this yuga cycle, which is the 28th millennium. We are in Kali Yuga, and then it has just started 5,000 years, around 427,000 years yet to go. Okay. So like that, we have 432,000 for Kali Yuga, 864,000 for Dwapar Yuga, 1,296,000 for Treta Yuga, and 1,728,000 for Satyuga. So everything you add, it comes to around 4.3 million years, right? And then you take thousands of that, 1,000 times, so 4.3 billion years. That is the duration of Brahma's day, where the creation and the yuga cycle is going on one after another, right? And then such is the duration of his night. So in that, imagine for 4.3 billion years, you will not get any body. Okay. So your soul will be restless, because if you are restless for what? A material, in the soul with a material body, with the material consciousness. Okay. What is he restless about? For sense gratification. But you cannot do that without a body. You need a body, either a subtle body or a gross body, but you can't. Okay. That is the time Brahma is sleeping. The creation is in complete inundation, right? So it is just a one statement here in Bhagavad Gita, but you have to understand, if you know the other scriptures like Bhagavatam, you will understand the pain the soul is going through if they don't remember Krishna. So it is Lord Krishna is sort of indirectly giving that sense of urgency for remembering him. Okay. अव्यक्ताद् व्यक्तयः सर्वा प्रभवन्ति हरागमे रात्रिरागमे प्रलीयन्ते तत्रैवाव्यक्ता सम्यके. At the beginning of Brahma's day, all living entities become manifest from the unmanifest state. They remain not, as I was telling you, they are in a suspended state. Okay. They are unmanifest, but now they become manifest. And thereafter, when the night falls, Brahma's night falls, that is after 4.3 billion years, 1,000 yuga cycles have passed, they merge into unmanifest again. Okay, they go back to unmanifested again. And in the next verse, he's saying something which really should give us the sense of urgency. Bhutagrama sa evayam bhutva bhutva praliyate ratri agame avasha partha prabhavati rahar agame. Right? Saying again and again, when Brahma's day arrives, all living entities come into being. Okay, if you want material consciousness, I don't want any activity, I want to remain in this state. No, you'll have to come into being. Okay, you'll have to think of survival. You're forced. This is the material world. You're forced to come. And if you are enjoying, then you may think, I don't want to leave this place. But with arrival of Brahma's night, they're helplessly annihilated. No. That's it. End of the term for getting a body, at least for another 1,000 yuga cycles, because that night for Brahma is 1,000 yuga cycles. In 4.3 billion years, you will suffer. Okay? You will need a body, you will not get a body. Okay? You will only have your soul and your subtle body. And because you have that subtle body, you will suffer. Because it's just like ghosts. Okay? They suffer. Right? They have subtle body. They have soul. That soul is suffering because of this. That subtle body wants those gratifications. The denial, the subtle body is in denial that they have died. That keeps them in that ghostly condition. So like that, they're helplessly annihilated. Right? Parastasmat tu bhavo anyo avyakto avyaktat sanatana yas sarveshu bhuteshu nasyatsu na vinashyati. Yet there is an unmanifest nature which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. Okay, so the matter is either manifested or it is unmanifested. When the matter is unmanifested, the soul with their subtle bodies, they don't get any body, gross body, right? Here the matter most probably is this, I believe, is the gross body. Okay, because this one, Lord Krishna is talking about, the pralaya at end of every Brahma's day. And it's not talking about the pralaya that happens after Brahma's life. There, you won't have even the subtle body with you. Okay. So it is supreme and it is never annihilated. So Lord Krishna is giving the contrast now. Okay. That unmanifest nature, which is his abode, okay, he will describe that in the next few verses. He's saying that is eternal, that never gets destroyed. But this matter, which gives this material body to the living souls, okay, that sometimes is manifested and sometimes is unmanifested. And he says, when he's further saying, when all in this world is annihilated, that is when it goes to unmanifested matter, that part, which is the unmanifest nature, that remains, that eternal nature remains. Okay. It is not that the living entities have to remain this cycle. If they choose, then they can go to that unmanifest natures. There is an option Lord Krishna has given there to the living entities suffering in this material world. Avyakto akshara iti uktastam ahu paramam gatim yam prapyana nivartante tadhama paramam mama. That which the Vedantis describe as unmanifest and infallible, avyakto, akshara, infallible, sometimes akshara can be used as infallible also, or avyakto is unmanifest. That which is known as the supreme destination, paramam gati, that place from which, having attained it, one never returns, na nivartante. Okay, that is my supreme abode, tad dhama paramam mama. So is saying that eternal nature which never changes, okay, that is his abode. That's the option. And the Vedantis, they describe that basically, that is that ultimate goal of human life, to reach that state, okay, to reach that world. Purusha sa parapartha bhaktya labhyastva ananya yashyanta sthani bhutani yena sarvam idam tatam. Okay. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. So now Lord Krishna is saying that Supreme Personality of Godhead, after giving all these various contrasts, right? That there exists a world where there's a world of suffering. You're helplessly, even if you don't want a body, you have to get a body at beginning of Brahma's day. And if you are enjoying, you don't want to leave that body helplessly, you have to leave that body right at the end of Brahma's day when the Brahma's night starts. Right. So the soul, if they don't accept the other option, which is trying to leave this world by focusing or dedicating one's activity, which is the most practical aspect, right? You don't have to do, follow this devotional path of Ashtanga Yoga. You can dedicate all your activities to Lord Krishna, right? That way also you can, if you don't want to go that path and achieve, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his abode, right? Then, so he is giving all this, his contradiction, and then you will have to suffer. So he's not giving unlimited options. So it's not like, go to Safeway and see like thousands of toothpastes. No, he is not unreasonable. He's saying that, that you want to enjoy, okay, in the material world, yes, there you have unlimited options, but you will have to suffer also there. That's material world, right? And then, but then you don't want this suffering. You want always in a happiness, condition of happiness. Then you have to leave all this. You have to have that self-control, and you have to focus and dedicate your activities to me, or you have to follow the path of Ashtanga Yoga and make sure, at the end of your life, of course, you have to build that consciousness throughout your life, and the end of the life, you utter Omkar and focus on my eternal form, right? That is Lord Krishna. And he is now saying that Supreme Personality of Godhead is greater than all is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Unalloyed devotion. This is very important. Okay. Ananya. So this devotion is not fixed with fruitive activities and jnana. So you are not doing this devotion to, along with something else. You are doing this devotion exclusively. Okay. So what does it mean? Sometimes some people, they know what is the ultimate truth is Krishna, but they may be still attached to a particular kind of work. Okay, they like it, right? So they want to engage in that work, and they say, because I'm attached to this work, I like to do this, but I will give all the results to Krishna. So that is still an alloyed devotion. That is not unalloyed. Unalloyed devotion is what Lord Krishna was asking Arjuna to do. That you do only that, okay, which I am telling you to do. That is unalloyed devotion. Your preferences, you leave your preferences aside. Okay, you have to look at what is Krishna's preference. Okay, what is he asking? That is unalloyed devotion. So one should not think that unalloyed devotion is all the time doing bhajan. No, that's not unalloyed devotion. You can engage like Arjun and still do unalloyed devotion. Only your every activity is driven not by the sense of duty, not by sense of what you like, your preferences, but by sense of what will please Lord Krishna. So even though you are doing a regular Silicon Valley job, or maybe you are a CEO of a company, or whatever you're doing, ultimately, if your goal is that, okay, that if I do the job this way, okay, and by the way, it is not easy to take that path, okay, and you will face a lot of resistance from your peers and other people. So most of the time, our devotion therefore becomes alloyed devotion. But here, Lord Krishna is saying, if it is unalloyed, it leads a lot of spiritual strength. Okay, if it is unalloyed, then okay, you can achieve him. Okay, is attainable. Although he is present in his abode, okay, which is in case of Krishna, Golok, Vrindavan, and then Narayan has many other spiritual planets, right? He is all pervading, and everything is situated within him. Okay. So why Lord Krishna is saying this after saying unalloyed devotion? Is saying this because this is how you will develop unalloyed devotion in this material world. Because in material world, you cannot see Lord Krishna's abode. We don't have that eye. Even if you go to Vrindavan, you go to Mayapur, Mathura, Dwarka, normally, at least in my case, I can say, I don't have the eye, to see that. So you have to understand, even if you go to, you have to understand, go to Vrindavan or those, the holy places, you have to first accept this fact that he is present everywhere. Okay, he is present everywhere. He is controlling everything. That is the aspect he's talking about. The same thing what he said at the end of the 7th chapter and in detail until certain verses in the 8th chapter, where he described in detail that how he is governing. Remember in one of the verse we read before that he is the supreme person, like a sun, and he's smaller than the smallest, he's controlling everything, he's maintaining everything. So that is what he's trying to, he's briefly saying the same thing here, that everything is situated within him. That means he's controlling everything. When we are in that consciousness, then even in this world, we can do unalloyed in the material world, engaged in our activity, we can do unalloyed devotion. Okay. Then we'll always be aware. Then we'll know that we are, by doing this thing, we are pleasing Krishna. That is the main goal. Okay. Yatra kale tva anavrittim avrittim chaiva yogina prayata yanti tam kalam vakshayami bharata rashabha. O best of the Bharata, I shall now explain to you the different times at which, passing away from this world, the yogi does or does not come back. Now Lord Krishna again goes back to that path of yoga, okay, in which in which condition a yogi leaves this world, he will come back, and in which condition he doesn't have to come back. And then towards the end, he's explaining about, again, he's saying how the devotion, the unalloyed devotion, dedicating all our activities to please the Krishna, how that is still the superior and less risky path, and you get everything. But still, we need to know a devotee. He says this actually here itself, in 8th chapter itself, he says towards the end, devotees are aware of this. It's not that devotees are like fools, So we should be aware of all the things that are going on as devotees. We have to be aware. So that is how we'll become careful. Okay. We will know both the pros and cons of everything. So we need to be aware of everything, devotees. But we don't have to follow those paths, because we know all those things. And that is what Lord Krishna is repeatedly, directly and indirectly stressing here in this 8th chapter, is that we have to know everything is ultimately controlled by Krishna. He is the governing principle. And we repose our faith on him. We take his shelter. That is what he's repeatedly saying. He's describing all these things, but he's saying that, you repose your faith on me. Okay, depend on me. That is what he's saying. Engage your activities, in my service. O best of the Bharatas, I shall now explain to you that at different times at which, passing away from this world, the yogi does or does not come back. Agnir Jyotirah Shukla Shanmasha Uttarayanam Tatra Prayata Gachanti Brahma Vido Jana. Those who know the Supreme Brahman attain that Supreme by passing away from the world during the influence of the fiery god, okay, in the light at an auspicious moment of the day, during the fortnight of the waxing moon, means the moon which is, from Amavasya to the Purnima, that phase of the moon, okay, waxing moon, or during the 6 months when the sun travels in the north, which is also known as Uttarayan, right? Uttarayan path. So there are two paths sun follows. Uttarayan path, right, travels in the north, and the Dakshinayan path when it travels in the south. So they attain the Supreme. These yogis, they attain the Supreme if any of the conditions are true. So, in the daytime, okay, fiery god in the light, there is sunlight, right, at an auspicious moon. Or if it is in the night, then it is during that phase of the moon. Okay. Or when the sun travels in the north. So these are all the various options. So like Bhishma Dev was, when he was preaching Yudhishthira Maharaj in Mahabharata, right? He was telling what is the Rajadharma in the Santi Parva and all. So he was actually at that time in parallel also waiting for that. Now, he was a devotee, he was Mahajan, but then why then he was waiting for that? So sometimes we have to understand that devotees do these things because they are aware, but I'm depending on Krishna, so I'm not going to follow that. No, they are not arrogant, because they are dependent on Krishna. That does not mean that you can become arrogant and ignore everything else, because everything else that came from Krishna. If you really understand, see, again and again we are going back to that same principle, that because Lord Krishna is the governing principle of everything that is going on, as Adi Agya, as Adi Bhuta, Brahman, and everything else, right? So we respect everything. And if there is a choice given to us to respect that also by following it, why not? But our consciousness is always that aspect we are following, Lord Krishna is the governing principle. He is helping me. Not that I will follow it, without, I don't care about Krishna, I will follow that and, and achieve my goal. No. So both ways, okay? Both is arrogance, following that process exclusively or completely rejecting that process because I am dependent on Krishna. Both are actually, if you look at it, both are disrespect to Krishna. Because then we are not understanding Krishna as all in all. We have to have that consciousness of Krishna being all in all. So everything is, is related to Krishna and governed by Krishna. So we have to accept that. Dhumuratris tatha Krishna sanmasha dakshinayanam tatra chandra masham jyoti yogi prapya nivartate. The mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke, the night, the fortnight of the waning moon, or the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, that's the Dakshinaya. Then they go to the moon planet, but they again come back. Okay, the soul then, the mystic yogi then comes back. Okay. Sukla Krishne gati ete jagata shashvate mate ekaya yati anavritim anyaya vartate punaha. According to the Vedic opinion, there are two ways of passing from this world. And again, same thing, going back to my earlier statement, that Lord Krishna is also explaining the basic principles. He explained in detail the two paths, okay, in which one yogi comes back, mystic yogi, and in the other, the mystic yogi, does not come back. But then he also explaining the basic essence, the principle behind that. What is that? Two ways of passing, one in light and one in darkness. That's the principle. If you pass in light, when one passes in light, he does not come back. But when one passes in darkness, he returns. Okay? That is the basic principle out of, the fiery god, Uttarayan and all that. That is what you have to understand. Because when a soul is living the world, in Bhagavatam, I don't remember which canto, there is this whole, going through the Shushumna and going through the heavenly planets, the devotee yogi, not the unalloyed devotion, but the devotee yogi, he's following that path. It has been described in detail. So you need to see some light, you need to follow that path to not come back. So, when the sun is in Uttarayan, even if you are in the night, if you are in Uttarayan, you're living, then, you can see this, the sunlight. So you follow that and leave this world. Okay. So there are a lot of intricacies here, okay, in this, but the basic principle is you need to see the light. Okay. There has to be a light to guide you away from this material world. But if you see darkness, then, go to moon planet and then you come back. Naite sriti partha janam yogi muihati kashana tashmat sarveshu kaleshu yoga yukto bhavarjuna. Although the devotees know these two paths, O Arjuna, they are never bewildered. Therefore, be always fixed in devotion. So, the devotees need to know these paths. They can't be fools. They need to know the various aspects mentioned in the scriptures. But they should not be bewildered. They should not be fearful. How you cannot be? By fixing yourself in devotion. When you're fixing in devotion, then the fear of uncertainty goes away. Because again, going back to that statement, that Lord Krishna is the governing principle of everything. He will take care of you. Okay? You should know these things, but he will take care of you. Okay? If he wants you to follow one of these paths, he will make sure there is a condition. Okay, he will bring your consciousness to a certain condition, just like he did with Bhishmadev. And, he made, he used that time. He was waiting for that Uttarayan to leave this world. He used that time to, give for Bhishmadev to give, the almost 1/3 of Mahabharata is that, 33,000 verses. He said, he explained, in the Anushasan Parva and Santi Parva to Yudhishthira Maharaj. There is a lot of, principles and small stories and pastimes there in the discourse from Bhishmadev. But the essential point I'm making is, because he was a devotee of Krishna, Krishna arranged that nicely. The whole thing was arranged so nicely. He also did not feel any pain, when he was in the bed of arrows. So that's a prime example how, even though he knew everything, he was not bewildered. He knew that, Lord Krishna will take care of him. Vedeshu yajneshu tapasu chaiva daneshu yat punya phalam pradishtam atyeti tat sarvam idam viditva yogi param sthanam upayati chadyam. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all this, and at the end, he reaches the supreme eternal hope. Okay. So Lord Krishna is concluding this, okay, that if one follows that unalloyed devotional service, okay, then he gets the result, all these other results. And he also gets the supreme eternal abode, so that he doesn't have to come back to this painful world, which Lord Krishna explained sort of in detail, you may say, those two verses where, you are helplessly, have to take a body, this material world when Brahmasya arrives, or have to leave the body when his day ends and his night starts. Okay. You don't have to suffer in this world, right? You can go to the supreme eternal abode, which is eternal, where you don't have to suffering. So I will now conclude this. Yeah, the session is concluded. I'll just stop sharing and see if anyone has any questions, any comments. I'll also check quickly. We have anything in YouTube, Facebook? Looks like there are no comments or there are no questions. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ruby Mataji, for your encouragement and your thing. Everything, whatever I said, whatever Srila Prabhupada written in the translation, that is what I've repeated. Thank you, you liked it. And thank you, everyone who patiently listened to this class. We will now close this session. Please remember that we'll have in this Saturday and this Sunday, Vaisheshika Prabhu will give his classes and in our regular program. And please do join on the Saturday 7:30 to 11. Actually, there's a japa session which starts early in the morning. So please join. And also on Sunday, we'll have our Sunday feast. So please join and listen to his wonderful lecture. Finally, anyone has anything they wanted to comment, or if not, then we'll end the session here. Okay. Thank you, everyone, again for joining. I'll now close the call. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Mataji wanted to say something?
No, I just was saying thank you, Prabhu, for the good class, and of course, good day also, Akha Titiya. So you shared the spiritual wisdom. So that's good.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. Okay, everyone, I will close the class now. Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.